My name is Randy Bigley. Joining me on the podcast right now from Crawford County Veterans Services is Mike Amsbaugh. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How
Very
are you?
good. Very good. I'm enjoying the balmy Ohio weather. The balmy 10-degree Ohio weather.
Well, hang on. It's going to get colder, too.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I'm not down for that.
It's that, February now. February weather here.
Yeah.
Starting tomorrow, we're hitting the February weather. It's always cold in February.
Yeah,
So.
and it stays that way till like June.
Yeah, it does. then we go to summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what's happening since we spoke last?
Well, so in the interim period of time, there's been a bigger push with the Department of Veterans Affairs to get the word out, and not just the VA. I mean, there's a lot of private individuals, i.e., law firms, that are, getting the word out about the PACT Act and Camp Lejeune. The big one, the PACT Act is big, but the Camp Lejeune one is particularly of interest, and that's the one that you see a lot of. You hear a lot about it, from the VA. You see a lot on the news.
I've seen billboards up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like billboards went up before the ink was dry on the paperwork.
Right, sure, yeah. Right, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. And so that's, the common thing that I have especially with Camp Lejeune, is it's a misunderstanding of what the benefit is. So there's two parts to that, to the Camp Lejeune thing. The first part is compensation, which is a monetary benefit paid by the Department of Veterans Affairs for an injury, illness, or disease incurred in service. And then the other part of that is medical. And it's not like one is more misunderstood than the other. There's an equal misunderstanding of both. So the compensation part it's called presumptive service connection, which is if you develop a condition, and there's a list. So Agent Orange exposure, there's a list. Service for World War II individuals who served in the South Pacific, there was a list. For former POWs, there's a list. For Gulf War veterans, for toxic exposure in burn pits, there's a list for all of these things. So because of where you served or when you served or what you did when you served or the circumstances under which you served, if you develop one of the conditions on that list, then the VA assumes that it was because of your service, presumptive service connection. And then they just look at, how severe is the condition, and they assign a percentage, and then they start providing compensation for that. So the thing that's the misunderstanding part is, because I served at Camp Lejeune or what's the other one? There's a New River in North Carolina. If I was in the Marine Corps, I served here, I see that there's a monetary benefit potentially. Yes, there is, but only if you have one of the conditions on the list. And right now it's a fairly short list. Most of these things, when they first start, the list is fairly short, and they add things as time goes on. So there's continuing medical studies. If they find that there's a new condition that is related to that exposure, they add it to the list.
So it has to do with the drinking water there, doesn't it? Is that
Yes,
what it was?
it's the contaminants in the drinking water.
That supposedly came from a laundromat or something like that, or some chemicals from a laundromat? Or,
it was dry cleaning chemicals.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
So it's it got into the groundwater, and if you served there between August of '53 and December of '87, then you had some exposure to that. But all of the conditions right now, I have a list. It's adult leukemia, myoplastic syndromes, bladder cancer, aplastic anemia, kidney cancer, liver cancer, multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and Parkinson's disease. And it covers right now guardsmen, reservists, and veterans. So if you served at one of those two places in one of those capacities and you have one of those conditions, clearly you need to file a claim. But there isn't a claims process that, hey, I served there, I served in one of those capacities, but I have perfect health. fine. That's fine. If you develop that later, we need to file a claim. If you don't have it now, you meet some of the criteria, but you don't have a compensable condition.
Now, if you're a loved one and you had a spouse that died a few years ago that was during that time, can you file a claim?
Not at this time. So the second part of this is the health care. So the thing that's popularly put out is you could, not only can you receive health care from the VA because of these conditions, or you can be on the Camp Lejeune list, but spouse and dependents can too. And that's true, but they had to be with you at Camp Lejeune or New River during that time.
Okay.
So if you just got married 10 years ago and your spouse never was at, those two locations during that period of time, no, they can't.
Right. Okay.
If you were married at the time and there's a potential that they could be receiving health care from the VA for this.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as the death of a spouse, there isn't anything that would compensate you for that. I mean, there isn't a compensation program for that sort of thing.
Right. And I think it's where people misunderstand all that stuff, don't they?
Right. So and it's a lot of what you see is, popular media. It's we talked earlier, billboards,
spam email. I get spam email about it all the time.
right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They don't spell Lejeune right, by the way.
No, they don't.
That's how you know that.
Yeah, they don't spell Lejeune right.
Yeah.
And none of them mention New River.
Really? Yeah.
No,
yeah.
they all mention just Camp Lejeune.
And that's the first I've heard New River that you spoke about it today. You don't see that anywhere.
Yeah. And so they get enough information out there that I have a lot of people that call and ask or come in and ask and say, hey, I was in the Marine Corps and I served at Camp Lejeune and I was there during the dates. And because of the information that they've received, they were told, or they were led to believe that, we're going to do some paperwork and there's a paycheck.
Yeah.
And potentially, yes, but they need to have one of the conditions on the list.
Yes, they don't say that. And that's what the problem is. Like I said, you may be entitled to some money. You see that.
Right. Yeah, there's a billboard on the way into town, I think, that actually has that on it.
Yeah, right.
It's some law firm purchased a bunch of them along 30, and they're like, hey, call us if you're interested in free money from Camp Lejeune.
It's the same. It's the same lawyers. If you're in a car accident, they say,
right,
we'll get you. We'll take. You don't get paid until we do, or something.
Right.
Yeah,
And
we don't get paid, you do, or something.
And that's not necessarily true either. Yeah. There's, just because they don't get paid until you do doesn't mean that they can't charge you fees.
See, right.
And there's, some of those fees can be pretty steep, including if you decide later on that you're not interested in having them represent you, you may have to pay to get rid of them.
Wow. That's too bad. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really a good idea, if you're a veteran and you served in the Marine Corps and you served at one of those two bases during that time frame, to give us a call.
Yeah.
If there's something that we can do, we certainly will. We'll start the paperwork and help you through the compensation process.
That's what you're there for. That's what you're there for.
Right.
Yes.
You don't need to hire an attorney.
Right.
There isn't a specialist that you need to go see.
Right.
There isn't some one weird trick. You can give us a call and we can help you through this.
Right.
And that's the reason that we exist.
See, that's right, and it won't cost you anything to talk to you.
No,
see?
It's free.
Yeah, it is, and we don't have to. And you don't have to. We don't have to pay you to get rid of you, right? Either,
right? No. Yeah, you just say I'm done. I say okay, good.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think really of the two things, and again, the PACT Act is the same way. And now the PACT Act covers more than just Camp Lejeune. So it's, they added a couple new things to Agent Orange exposure.
Okay.
There's stuff about toxic exposure and burn pits in there. Gulf War, I believe, is mentioned. So there's a bunch of things that are part of that PACT Act, but really the biggest part of it is the medical care. It expands medical care and services for veterans who, had those exposures. And that's really the most important part of that. It's the most valuable part of it.
Sure.
But again, if you served and you think you might, have something that could be a compensable disability, call us. If it is, we'll certainly help. If it's not, we'll tell you that up front.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, it's something that's out there. It's not well understood, and I don't want to discourage anyone from coming in and seeing us. That's certainly not the case, but
Right.
It's something that probably needs a little bit better of an explanation.
Sure. If someone is interested in your services, how can they do that?
Well, our office is located at 112 East Mansfield Street, Suite 95. So it's the lower level of the courthouse in downtown Bucyrus. Or they can call us. Our number is 419-562-7761.
All right. Like I said, you'll answer their questions for free.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, if someone has a question about, do I qualify? What do I qualify for? By all means, call.
Doesn't hurt to ask, does it?
No, doesn't hurt to ask.
You may be surprised. You may qualify for something you didn't even know you did. Right.
Right, and you may not qualify for this, but in our discussion, we might find out that you qualify for something else, or you qualify in another way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike.
No problem. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.